Hello and welcome back to our Phoenix Wright Attorney. In the last episode, we had our trial former on the third day, and today we will be having the trial ladder, in which we read through the SL9 incident files, learned that Lena and Emma were both witnesses, learned that Jake Marshall, someone related to Jake Marshall, was probably one of the victims, Neil Marshall. We also learned that the murder in the evidence room was a fake. We investigated the video to determine that, which was pretty neat. And what else did we learn? Not much, I don't think. Okay, February 24th, 12:14 p.m. District Court, Courtroom number 9. This court will now reconvene for the trial of Miss Lena Skye. Emma didn't come back. Allow me to call the next witness to the stand. The officer in charge of guarding the evidence room on the day of the crime. Jake Marshall. Witness, please state your name and occupation. Me, partner? Oh, I'm just a man, the same as you, wandering the trails of civilization. Occasionally helping the elderly cross intersections when needed. Yes, we get it. Oh, I know. You're a patrolman. As for my name, if you hear hard enough, you can hear the howling wind calling it out. To be exact, it's Jake Marshall, Your Honor. Howling wind? I've never heard Edgeworth described that way before. Now, Mr. Marshall, let me ask you something. You were in charge of guarding the evidence room on the day the crime took place. Is this correct? According to the papers, partner. What do you mean? A desperado's soul's as boundless as the desert sands. No paper can sum it up. Oh, this guy's gonna be a joy. Maybe you're supposed to get on with this quickly. Please share with us your testimony on the day of the crime, in plain old English. My job was to keep a wary eye on that bone orchard. They said I was supposed to make rounds 3 times a day, but that ain't my style. Besides, the room is protected by 2 security systems anyway. Okay, he said he knew... That's consistent. He said he knew about 2. He said he knew about the cameras and the ID and the fingerprint thing, right? Like the ID card, right? Correct, okay. If I remember right, I was at a street side saloon at the time it went down. I'm just an innocent traveling man, so if you're out of ammo, it's time I hit the trail. I can't say I particularly care for your attitude. I can't say I care for your beer, but you don't see me complaining. Oh! Toasted by Officer Jake Marshall. How does that make you feel, Judge? Wait a minute. What do you mean by 2 security systems? I mean the security cameras and the ID. Yep, I was right. I reckon even a cowpoke like you knows about those. Yes, well, what about the fingerprint-activated locks on the evidence lockers? Fingerprint-activated locks? What kind of newfangled doohickeys are those? He's not being very helpful. He's not that good with machines, or with following orders. Everyone's got their weaknesses, now don't they, Mr. Prosecutor? This one seems like trouble. Okay, Mr. Wright, he's all yours. Cross-examination, day of the crime. Okay. So, he said... That's nothing. He said, no you weren't, and we have the evidence. We have your prints. Officer Marshall, doesn't it strike you as odd? That is, you being called in to testify like this? After all, you weren't in the security room at the time of the crime. And yet you dragged me down here. Explain yourself, partner. It's quite simple. You left a very large trail behind at the scene. Or to be exact, a handprint. Listen real good, partner. Like I said, I'm the caretaker of that crypt. I pay my respects, that is, make my rounds about once a month. It's only natural my fingerprints would be in there. I only wish it were, officer. But you see, your fingerprints were covered in blood. Witness, what's the meaning of this? Your bloodstained fingerprints were at the crime scene. The blood was wiped away. However, a luminal test clearly revealed this. Well, Officer Marshall? It seems to me there ain't a person in this room with a head on his shoulders. I take it you have an explanation, and I take it you have an explanation then, Officer Marshall? About the bloodstained fingerprints? Very well, you may begin your testimony about your fingerprints, found at the scene of the crime. Okay, witness testimony, bloodstained fingerprints. Like I said, it's only natural for my fingerprints to be in the evidence here. Okay, we're definitely pressing that statement, because I would love to hear how it's natural. One of them just happened to be at the same place as the bloodstained handprint. Uh-huh. The murderer touched the locker where my fingerprint was by chance. The bloodstain and the fingerprint are completely unrelated. Well, didn't you know the murderer was murdered? How do you know that? How do you know that? See? I had nothing to do with it. Like, actually, how do you know that? The witness's explanations appear valid, although there's room for doubt. Life wouldn't be fun without any doubt, partner. The defense may now cross-examine the witness. This guy's hiding something, I can feel it. Now's my chance to prove it. Okay, first thing we're gonna do. Why exactly would it be natural for your prints to be there? That's because you, how do you put it, pay your respects once a month? Yeah, that's right. Then one more thing. That locker happens to be mine. What? What do you mean? I mean what I said. That's the locker I used when I was a detective. The locker I still use. All that's in there now is a heap of broken dreams. I see. It'd be strange if my prints weren't all over that locker. Apparently his fingerprint data was never removed from that locker's programming. He must have been using the fingerprint lock all this time without ever knowing it. Okay, so now we know that it was his own locker. It's good to know. One of them... Okay, let's go to the last thing he said. How do you know that? How do you know that? I may be a loner, but I still do my job. I keep up on the reports. There was a bloodstain at the scene thought to be left by the murderer. That's right. It was found on Detective Gumshoe's locker. However, no fingerprints were detected on that handprint. Oh yeah, I think we tried that too. So that would mean the murderer, wearing gloves, happened to place their hand on top of Officer Marshall's fingerprint. That's the only logical conclusion. Are you starting to get the picture, partner? The picture? This seal of blood in the desert is just food for the buzzards. There's only one reality, and that's this. The security tape. So long as my trail isn't in there, you can't say otherwise. This isn't getting us anywhere, Mr. Wright. Please consider carefully where you're going with this cross-examination. Yes, Your Honor. Well then, continue your testimony, Officer Marshall. Too bad it wasn't me in that video, right, partner? And can you prove it wasn't you? Or do I have to prove it was you? What do you mean by that? You want to tie me to this crime, isn't that right, partner? If so, that video is the only direct evidence you have. But that video is next to useless. It's full of blind... No, it's not. Blind spots? Places you can't see. The camera's panning back and forth. The floor isn't shown. If someone was familiar with the camera's position, they could leave the room without being caught on tape. Yeah, but there's gotta be something in here that we can use to prove that it was Marshall without just... Other than that, like... Actually, wait a second. Wait a second. I might have just gotten it. Look at the leftmost locker where the fingerprints were found. He said that's his locker, right? There's a cloth sticking out of that. But if I remember correctly, let me play this video one more time. Oh, I can't play it. How convenient. Okay, the next time we get the ability to play that video, I have a hunch on something. Can I play it now? Yes, I can. Okay. Yep, I was right. All right. Okay. Wait for it to pan back. So, in the part of the video that was shown before, that was after the murderer had left the room, right? But if you look now, look at the leftmost locker. There's no cloth sticking out of there anymore. Which means that the only other... So there was two people in this room. The murderer, or not the murderer, but who we believe to be Jake Marshall, and Officer Meekins. If we're correct in it being Jake Marshall, it makes perfect sense for him to have opened the locker on the left, because he's the only person who would have been able to do that. I think I'm right on this one. We don't have time for your speculations, Mr. Wright. Well, Mr. Wright, if you can show us evidence in this video that indicates Officer Marshall was present, please do so now. Show evidence. Very well. Allow me to point out your mistake, Officer Marshall. Tread carefully, Mr. Wright, or you might wind up being the one making the mistake. Don't worry, I'm not. Now then, let's have another look at the video. Show us the incriminating evidence. Okay, so we gotta fast forward all the way to the end. So I'm just gonna speed this up because this is not gonna be very entertaining. You to just watch me speed through this. And gotcha! Bringing our attention back to the security camera is a mistake I'm afraid you'll soon not forget, Officer Marshall. The days are short in Texas, and so are our tempers. Could you sum up what you have to say in 8 words or less? Very well. You can clearly be seen in the video. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep, that's 8 words. Exactly 8 words. Not bad, partner. The key lies in a certain locker shown in the video. Oh, don't make us watch the whole thing again, please. Okay, good. It's gonna just show this part. That locker with the white claw sticking out. That's what. Well, that was the witnesses, I believe. Now then, let's rewind the video. Oh, good God. Well, let's just sit here and have a friendly little chat. How you guys doing today? I'm doing just fine. I'm playing Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, and I'm having the time of my life. So now we just gotta sit and wait for freaking video to go all the way back over and reveal. Okay, good. The cloth is gone. Oh, the white cloth is gone. What's the meaning of this, Officer Marshall? When the crime took place, the white cloth wasn't there. Then it suddenly appeared. There's only one explanation. Officer Marshall, you were in the evidence room at the time of the crime. What's more, you opened your locker when the camera was turned away. And you did a very sloppy job of putting it back in. Order, order, it would seem that's the only... Hold your horses. Sorry, partner, but you got the wrong man. So what if my locker was opened? Doesn't mean I'm the... Oh, he doesn't know. He doesn't know about the evidence locker. Murderer needed to hide something, so he opened the locker and stuck it in. It's not my fault he happened to choose mine. Why is everyone staring at me like I'm a wanted man? He doesn't know. This guy isn't just playing dumb. He really doesn't know. I hate to rain on your parade, but you're the only person who can open that particular locker. Oh yeah? I call your bluff. You say I opened that locker? Now prove it. Oh, with pleasure. Fingerprint sensor? Oh, he's sweating. He knows he's caught. We talked about this earlier today. The lockers can only be opened by the detectives they belong to. What kind of crazy talk is this? Well, Detective Gumshoe did mention something about this. In any case, the locks aren't that obvious. There are even some people on the force that don't know about the fingerprint locks. So, Sheriff, what do you have to say in 8 words or less? I only got 1 word for you, partner. No! Order, order, witness, explain yourself. If this is a joke, it's the worst I've ever heard. I assure you this is no joke, Officer Marshall. Now then, please tell us what you were doing in the evidence room at the time of the crime. Ole, please answer the question. What is he now, a bullfighter? That's alright, Officer Marshall. I believe we can figure the rest out from here. We can? Have a look at these floor plans. There was no place for someone to hide in the evidence room. Yet Officer Meekins didn't see Officer Marshall. If that's so, then where's the witness? It seems Mr. Wright has an answer. That's right. The only possible conclusion. Well then, let's hear it. Where was Officer Marshall at the time of the crime? He was here. Because if Meekins is the killer in this instance, then he was the victim, opening the locker. Officer Marshall was standing right here. There? But that's where the victim, Detective Goodman, was. No, no, no. Correct. Unless the man wasn't Detective Goodman. I believe the victim in this video is Officer Marshall. It was you, dressed up like Detective Goodman. Well, that's preposterous. Officer Meekins witnessed a detective at the crime scene. Once he saw the man's face, he'd know for sure. May I point out, though, that Officer Meekins did not know Detective Goodman. He also testified about the man's reaction when confronted. When I entered the evidence room, I asked him to show his card. There! Yes? And how did Detective Goodman respond? He suddenly pulled a knife on me! Something about the officer's story puzzled me. If the man had his ID card, why didn't he just show it? Yes, he would have needed it to enter the evidence room, so he must have been carrying it. The answer is simple. He couldn't show it. As you can see, Detective Goodman's picture is on his ID card. Oh, I get it. If he showed that, his cover would have been blown. Officer Meekins would have realized that the man wasn't Detective Goodman. You have anything to say to this, Mr. Officer Marshall? You've got quite an imagination, partner. We got a term for that. It's called circumstantial evidence. Circumstantial evidence? He's still denying it. You're gonna have to do better than that to break a detective. Unless you have hard evidence proving I dressed up as the victim. I can't say I particularly care for your uncooperative disposition. I can't say I care for your beer, but yet you already used that joke. Well, Mr. Wright, do you have any evidence proving beyond a shadow of a doubt that Officer Marshall dressed up as the victim? Well, I can see the fear in your eyes, partner. Seems you're the one who couldn't take the desert heat. Ah, this can't be happening. It's so obvious he's the one. What can I do? It looks like your lack of experience has finally been exposed. I'll pass on to use what someone told me when I was just starting out. When you run into a wall with no place to go, return to the basics. The basics. For me, that would be what Mia used to tell me. Phoenix, try thinking outside of the box. I shouldn't look for proof that Officer Marshall was in disguise, but rather I should look for evidence that came about because he was in disguise. Why do you think this locker was opened in the first place? What do you mean? There's no reason for Officer Marshall to open his locker at the time of the crime. Yet he did, despite the chance that it might be discovered later as it has been. Which means he didn't originally plan to open his locker. According to the defense's argument, Officer Jake Marshall dressed up as Detective Goodman at the time of the crime. Then after the crime was committed, he opened his locker for some unknown reason. He opened the locker to put the cloth in there, but why would he have had to put the cloth in there? The fact that the white cloth is sticking out of the locker seems to indicate that. He opened it in order to put the cloth inside. So, just what exactly is this piece of cloth? Perhaps the video is the key to all our ends, and I don't have any evidence of the video is my only shot. Very well, let's take yet another look at the security tape. After committing the crime, the witness opened the locker to put away the white cloth. Please show us why the witness had to open the locker. Okay. So we have to look for some kind of white cloth that would show why he would have opened it up. Like, he doesn't... There were no white cloths on him. His whole outfit is white, that's for sure. But he doesn't actually have... Okay, we can play. There aren't any actual cloth. Maybe... Are you holding a cloth? No, you're not holding a cloth. So what the heck? Oh, wait, we won. It's bloody now. That's what he had to do. His jacket is white. He got blood on it. He had to put it in the locker or else it would be obvious. And that explains, you know what? That explains why it was sticking out. Because I thought to myself, and I actually said it out loud, for a cloth that small, it seems odd that you wouldn't just put it all the way inside. But if you had to put the whole jacket in there, then it makes sense that part of it would have been sticking out. For some reason, you disguised yourself as Detective Goodman and entered the evidence room. I don't know to what end, yet. However, something unexpected happened. Officer Meekins barged in on you. When asked to show your ID card, you pulled a knife on him. However, Officer Meekins panicked, and the white coat you were wearing was soiled with blood. A bloody white coat. You couldn't just walk out like that, so you hid the coat in your locker. Not bad, partner. Now then, Officer Marshall, are you ready to tell us the truth? Looks like I underestimated y'all. I hope you're happy now, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, if you were only half as persistent then as you are today, we all wouldn't have to be here now, would we? Officer Marshall, tell the court what you did. All of it. Alright. It seems the time has come. Okay. Here we go. We got him. Marshall's confession. This is it. This is the final showdown. I had to do it that day. I couldn't just stand by and let it die. I stole the detective's ID and dressed like him. I planned to take out all the evidence. I wasn't expecting Officer Meekins. I knocked him out. I managed to escape. I knew which areas wouldn't be caught on the camera. There wasn't any murder in the evidence room at 5:15. So the supposed victim was really you? But there's still one thing I don't understand. Traces of a large quantity of blood were found on the floor of the evidence room. If no one was murdered, then how could that be? Officer Meekins had managed to cut his own hand. My guess is he's the donor. It was way too much blood for such a small donation. Okay, well, again, no contradictions, so time to play the pressing game. When you say it, you mean... Do you even have to ask, partner? The SL9 incident. 2 years ago, 2 years have passed since that case was closed. It was going to completely end with the transferal that day. Not if I have anything to do with it. That incident's not over. But what did you hope to accomplish by sneaking into the evidence room? When a case is closed, only that case's lead detective can look through the evidence. I wanted to have a look at it myself one more time, no matter what the cost. I don't care what anyone says, partner. That case is mine. But Officer Marshall wasn't in charge of that investigation. Why does he care about it so much? Yeah, Bruce Goodman was in charge of it. That day was my last chance. That's why I... Still the detectives... No. No. Wait, what the... Do it. Why did you disguise yourself as Detective Goodman? Because he was the lead off... If I remember correctly, he was the lead investigator, right? Yep, head investigator Bruce Goodman, so he was the only person who would have been allowed to go in there, so that's why he had to disguise himself. Nope, back out, backing out. If I didn't make it look like Goodman was carrying out the evidence transferal, I'd be arrested for stealing evidence, which wouldn't get me anywhere. So you did it to fool the security camera? And the detective's ID card? I stole that the morning of the incident. So that really was why Goodman started filling out that lost item report. I returned his ID card. I left it on the floor in the prosecutor's office parking lot. The ID card I found was left there by Officer Marshall. So essentially, you managed to succeed despite your lack of foresight. What do you mean, partner? I mean the fingerprint activated lock, of course. No matter how well you disguise yourself, you can't change your fingerprints. Under normal circumstances, you wouldn't have been able to open that locker yourself. But he could because a rubber glove just happened to get stuck in the door. That means Detective Goodman must have opened the locker before Officer Marshall. I wasn't expecting it. You pulled a knife on Officer Meekins and tried to drive him off? Let's just say I was a little surprised. I only planned on being in the evidence room for no more than 5 minutes. I didn't think anyone would actually come in during that short time. Officer Meekins certainly is a 1 in a million type of person. Mistaking a detective for an intruder and demanding to be shown his ID. I'll have to think a little more about his raise this year. When did Edward get so much influence? Anyway, he threw himself at me and I ended up cutting him slightly. I'm sorry it had to turn out that way, with me knocking him out and everything. By the way, what happened to your knife? Oh, you mean this one? I don't know what to say. So you knocked Officer Meekins out and... So you did your research beforehand. Those who go into the desert unprepared don't live long, partner. I didn't think it would make a difference, though. The security tape is erased every 6 hours. If all had gone as planned, no footage would have been left. However, you blooded your coat in your struggle with Officer Meekins. If someone was in the security room when I came out, the jig would have been up. I opened my locker and stashed it in there. What was Officer Meekins doing during that time? What else? He was sleeping like a baby. So what you're saying is that on that day... That's the thing. I press every single statement and just desperately trying to find a contradiction, and nothing's coming up. Although I guess if he's confessing, we don't really need to look for a contradiction. But the blood found at the scene certainly indicates a crime took place. What are you, blind? The victim shown on that tape is me, and I'm not dead yet, partner. So you stole the evidence from the locker? Actually, no I didn't. Why not? When I opened the locker, the evidence was already gone. What? Mr. Edgeworth, where was that evidence? It's still missing, Your Honor. So, Detective Goodman's locker was already empty. Someone else stole the evidence. Officer Marshall, may I ask you one thing? Fire away, partner. It's a free country. Just remember, I'm also free to decide whether or not to answer. Why did you do this? Stealing a detective's ID? Injuring a police officer? This is no small offense. Moreover, you're an officer yourself. This will have serious consequences. It can't just be forgiven with a simple cut in salary. Not that salary cuts are ever a valid solution. Like I said, this isn't your case. This one is mine. And I'll do anything it takes to get an answer I'm satisfied with. The witness has an unusual amount of zeal. Let's hear more. I can't just forget the SL9 incident. You know why? I think I do know. Yes, because I was correct. And Neil Marshall, one of the victims, and he's obsessed with this case because of that. Officer Marshall, I think I understand. I think I know why you care so much about the SL9 incident. Sounds like you've been sipping too much cactus juice, partner. I have the SL9 incident file here. The name Marshall is mentioned in here. In a list of murder victims. Neil Marshall. Are you related to this man? Neil Marshall? Yeah, I'm sure you've heard the name. 2 years ago, he received the same lousy prosecutor award you got. What? A prosecutor? You must be talking about the King of Prosecutors award. No, I remember. Prosecutor Neil Marshall. He handled the SL9 case before I did. That's right. He was killed, and the case fell into your hands. But what's his relation to you? He was my brother. Oh, he's taking off the cowboy hat. We're getting serious. He was investigating the murders with Damon Gant, the deputy chief of police. A group of detectives I was part of worked under them. We were desperate to prosecute the killer. Joe Dark. My brother fought Dark and was killed. That was the first time Dark left behind any evidence. That was all we needed. He was arraigned and incarcerated. The case was finally closed. At least, according to the public records. What do you mean? My brother couldn't have been killed by Joe Dark. I knew my brother better than anyone. No one could have beaten him in a fight. And that's it? That's your reason for your insane actions? There's more to my brother's death than what the records say. No matter how much you try to hide it, you can't fool me. Well, at least one thing's for certain. Now we know what happened at the police department on the day of the crime. That was the last day the SL9 case could be reopened. Not satisfied with its resolution, Officer Marshall planned to steal the evidence. Disguising himself as Detective Goodman, he entered the evidence room. Officer Meekins confronted him, so he rendered him unconscious and fled. Yes, this mystery has finally been cleared up. No murder took place at the police department that day. The things that happen by chance never cease to amaze. At exactly the same time as the murder at the prosecutor's office, this fake murder was going on at the police department. I don't think that was by chance, Edgeworth. Chance? It's gotta be more than just that. So if no one was murdered at the police department on the day of the crime, that means the murder in the prosecutor's office parking lot was the real one. Which in turn means only one person could have committed the crime. Chief Prosecutor Lena Skye. But wait! A verdict wasn't reached in yesterday's trial! Which is why we have examined the incident at the police department today. But there's only one reason the defendant was not convicted yesterday. There yet remain the mystery of the simultaneous murder at the police department. It seems to me this boy's got the jaw on you, partner. All of the mysteries of the police department have been resolved. No doubt about it. Our sole murder took place at the prosecutor's office. The only suspect is Lena Skye. And the testimony of one Miss Angel Style is completely incontestable. If you have a response, make it a single word or less. Durr! I rest my case. It seems the trial has reached a conclusion. There's no room for doubt. Well done, Mr. Wright. Thanks to you, I didn't need to waste my time disproving the alleged murder of the police department. There's no doubt what I proved today is true. The apparent murder on the security camera's tape really was fake, but I didn't realize that would end up proving Lena guilty. Now then, the time for the verdict has arrived. This court finds the defendant... Oh? Emma? Your Honor, wait! But Emma? The defense is an objection. A scientific objection. Right? What do you mean, right? Mr. Wright, are you this girl's guardian? Your Honor? Oh, in a sense. Please, Your Honor. All I'm asking for is a minute of your time. Please hear me out. Mr. Edgeworth, please. I don't want to leave any loose ends. You want a minute? I'll give you 3. I was kind of in shock. I mean, finding out the SL9 incident referred to the Joe Dark killings. Now that she mentions it, the name of both Sky Sisters were in that file. Yeah, they were both witnesses. But that's when I figured it out. I mean, what Officer Marshall was trying to do that day. So I knew his fingerprint had nothing to do with the crime. That left only one thing, the other handprint. You mean the traces of blood found on Detective Gumshoe's locker? But no fingerprints were found on it, right? No, but I figured if I examined it scientifically, I'd be sure to find a clue. So, I ran over there and looked at it again. So, did you find something? No. Yep. What? What? Sorry, I guess I'm not much of a scientific investigator. Then what did you... Yes, I investigated it, and I came to tell you that it is of no use to you whatsoever. Reminds me of Liar Liars. Like, objection, Your Honor. On what ground? Because it is devastating to my case. Overruled. Good call. Is that all? Please don't be mad. I'm just a high school student. And I'm just an attorney. But, Mr. Wright, those traces of blood are the only clue we have. If we can't find something wrong with them... Please, Mr. Wright, you're a professional. If anyone can save Lena, it's you. Me? Oh, boy. Time's up. Now then, Mr. Wright. With regard to the incident at the police department, does any reasonable doubt remain? It appears the defense is troubled by the other blood mark. Looking at the floor plans, a handprint was discovered around here. Is there a problem with this? Mr. Wright, I'm sorry I can't be of more use, but still, if you can't find anything wrong with that blood mark, Lena will be... Please answer my question, Mr. Wright. We don't have all day. Yes, Your Honor. If ever I'm needed to concentrate, it's now. What could be wrong with that handprint on Detective Gumshoe's locker? Okay. So, Detective Gumshoe's locker, there was a handprint found on there. So why is there a problem with that? What? Detective Gumshoe's locker. My brain, I'm not even kidding you, there's like almost 2.5 pages worth of, actually I think exactly 2.5 pages worth of evidence. Or around that point. I'm running through every single thing we have, desperately trying to figure out what in the world this could possibly be. Okay, can I look at we're looking at the floor plans now. Why? The only thing I can think of is that, like... No, it doesn't make any sense. I was gonna say that maybe, like, the handprint couldn't have been placed there, but that doesn't make any sense, because why would the... The stupid, the statue thing, the statue! Look, the statue, okay. Go back to the video, can we play the video? The statue's in front of the locker. The statue is in front of the locker where the handprint is. It is physically impossible for them to have placed a handprint there. So if that's true, then the murder would have happened before then. This handprint left at the crime scene. Clearly shows a contradiction. The only thing that seems clear is your grasping, Mr. Wright. You've been staring pretty intently at those floor plans. Tell me, is there a problem with them? Yes, this is strange. Take a look at these floor plans. Something is missing. Missing? You mean something hasn't been drawn on there? Yes, something that, when drawn, will completely change the meaning of the blood mark. Let us pray the defense isn't simply trying to buy time. Very well, Mr. Wright. With all this evidence here, there's gotta be something I can use. The question is, which item can prove the blue badger? And actually, you know what? Let me check something. If I'm correct... So, alright. Let me go back to the ID card record. So... The only... It would have had to have been before 450. Because that was when Officer Meekins put the, moved the statue in front of the locker, right? Which means it was either Miles Edgeworth or the other one. Okay, we have to figure out who the other, because there's no way it's, although actually didn't I say something like, what if it was Edgeworth and I had a reason to suspect that? I forgot what the reasoning was, but maybe. Although I think it's far more likely that whoever it ends up being is, like, the first one, the 777, all the sevens. Whoever that ID belongs to, that's almost definitely who did it. So let's see. Let's see if I'm right on that one. What about that piece of plywood? The Blue Badger, mascot of the police force, defender of truth, guardian of proof. Explain yourself, Mr. White. Please look at the floor plans of the crime scene. The Blue Badger is not here. So watch what happens when we put him in. This is where he was dancing at the time of the crime. Well? Whoa, what? That's right. So long as the Blue Badger is dancing here, it would be impossible to place a handprint at this spot in the locker. So that means, just exactly what does that mean? It means it can't be done. What are you saying? Blood traces were undeniably found in that locker. Don't look at me. Mr. Wright, think it through scientifically. Emma, on that afternoon, Officer Meekins was the one who brought in the Blue Badge to the evidence room, right? After he put it down, it would be impossible to leave a handprint in that locker. So that means this blood mark was left there before the Blue Badger was brought in? Just one moment. I will not allow such far-fetched balderdash in my courtroom. It may sound far-fetched, Your Honor, but it's the only possible explanation. On February 21st in the police department's evidence room, blood was spilled not once, but twice. But how? One time was captured on this tape taken by the security camera. Officer Meekins cut his hand, from which a trivial amount of blood fell. The problem was the other time. Someone bled prior to the struggle shown on this tape. It had to have been Detective Goodman when he was really murdered! That's ridiculous. I refuse to accept your absurd claim. The murder portrayed in the security tape has been proven to be a fake. However, that does not explain the blood mark found in the locker. So then, assuming this murder you purport really happened, when did it take place? I demand you show evidence to prove when it occurred. I can distill the ID card record, right? To summarize, the defense claims that prior to Officer Meekins being caught by Jake Marshall, who was posing as Detective Goodman, another incident took place in that evidence room. That's right, the blood mark in the locker proves this. Very well, then tell us. When did the first incident occur? Proof that shows when the murder took place. There's only one piece of evidence that can show that. Now then, will the defense please present us evidence? Yep, just go to the ID card record. If the crime took place inside the evidence room, then the killer would have had to enter it. And in order to do so, an ID card would have been required. An ID card? Oh, the ID card record. Officer Meekins brought the Blue Badger panel into the evidence room at, let's see here, 4:50 p.m. If the crime took place before that time, then it would be 4:40. Mr. Miles Edgeworth, what's one of you done? Are you people unaware that there's another time stamp on there? Drop the act, witness. It doesn't take a lot of thought to figure out it couldn't have been me. Nope, I ain't getting it. I'm afraid I don't understand either. It's clear from the luminal test that the blood was there. However, when the second crime took place, both Officer Meekins and Officer Marshall failed to notice the blood. That means the blood from the first crime was wiped away by the real murderer. It would have had just 10 minutes to murder the victim, carry his body away, and clean up the blood. Unfortunately, that's physically impossible. That would mean the crime must have taken place before Mr. Edgeworth entered the evidence room. Let's look at the chart again. There's only one other card number remaining. 77777777. Talk about a lucky number. But wait, that doesn't make sense. How could Detective Goodman have entered the evidence room? Since there's no record of his card being used beforehand, he must have entered along with the real murderer. That's the only plausible explanation. He went in with 777777. Mr. Edgeworth, please look into this ASAP. Find out whose ID number is 7. Yeah, I'll do the 7. That's 7 too many, Your Honor. Unfortunately, I'm unable to look up the owner of that ID card. At least at present. What? Explain yourself, son. The ID number 777777 belongs to someone with the rank of Captain or higher. It's the Chief. Chief Gant. That's the only person left it could be. That's who it is, it's Chief Gant. Someone who is a so-called executive officer. Yep, Chief Gant. We don't have the authority to inquire into such a person's identity. But that's ridiculous. Just how... I'm not finished talking, Mr. Wright. There is one situation in which we can be granted such authority. If an official charge filed against an executive is accepted. An official charge. You're all alike, aren't you? With your cover-ups and your forgeries. That's how the prosecutor's office operates. I take pride in my work, Officer Marshall. I would appreciate it if you keep your slander to yourself. Slander, is it? Okay. Let me ask a question. Yes? No, not to you. To her, the defendant sitting over there. Your own little executive. Lena? Don't be stupid. Don't be stupid. She's been charged with murder. Of course we've looked her up. And it's not 7777. Don't play me for a fool, partner. That's not what I want to ask. All I want to know is one thing about that incident. Yes, what incident? Answer me this, Chief Prosecutor. In that trial 2 years ago, did you really only use legitimate evidence? Do you need the witness to repeat his question, Chief Prosecutor? I heard him fine, Mr. Edgeworth. 2 years ago, I was in charge of the prosecution for that trial. At the time, occasionally, we felt the powerlessness of the law. At least, I did. Lena, I became a prosecutor in order to suppress crime with the law. But before I realized it, we were the ones being suppressed by the law. Defendant, just what are you saying? I'll ask you again, Chief Prosecutor. During the trial 2 years ago, did you really present all the evidence in court? Can you look me, an investigator in that crime, in the eye and say that you did? Chief Prosecutor, you didn't! I don't have to, Officer Marshall. Why won't you answer him? Drastic crimes require drastic measures. That's just the way it is. We did what we had to, in order for him to get the verdict he deserved. But Lena! Even if it involved forging evidence. See? That's what I'm talking about. No. No! Oh dear. Order! 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 Lena's remarks caused such a stir. The chaos in the courtroom could not be quelled. The conclusion of the trial would have to wait until the following day. Chills down spine. Holy hell. Yikers. Okay. That was an intense trial. So now, Lena's dropped a bombshell on us that they did forge evidence in the Jodar killings. And so now we just have to, I mean, it seems pretty straightforward now though. We just figure out who the number belongs to, which I can almost guarantee you it belongs to the police chief Gant. And then we have our murderer. Easy. Right? Maybe? I don't know. Well, anyway, that's it for this episode, so thanks for watching. See you next time. We'll catch you all tomorrow for some more Phoenix Wright Attorney. Goodbye.